Welcome to the Mature Masculinity Podast. I'm your host, Taylor Elwood. And in this podcast, this is episode 1, and we're going to be exploring what it means to become a mature man. What it means to become the kind of man that you want to be. I'm going to have guests on this show most of the time, but for this first episode, I thought that what I would do is introduce myself, tell you a little bit about me and my journey, and then talk about the definition of what a mature man is. So my name's Taylor Elwood, and I have been involved in men's work for the last couple of years. It's actually been 2 years, a little over 2 years now since I got into the men's work, and I got into it as a result of a breakup. I had gotten divorced in 2021, and I made the mistake that so many people make, which is in the wake of that divorce, I ended up getting into a relationship within a few months. It was absolutely one of the worst decisions that I made. The person I got involved with was not a good fit for me at all in the long term. She was an alcoholic and a narcissist. And I didn't realize that at the time. But I was also a codependent, needy, nice guy, and that didn't help either. And we were together for a year, and then she broke up with me. There'd been a lot of fighting at that point, a lot of things that had happened, and I remember spending that night in July. It was July 13th that she broke up with me, July 13th of 2022, and I remember spending that night just lying in my bed, looking at my life, wondering what the hell I was doing wrong and why I was doing what I was doing. And saying to myself, I need to turn my life around. I can't continue to make the same mistakes that I'm making. I keep making the same mistakes. I'm trying to make a relationship work here that isn't working. It's done. It was interesting because the next morning she contacted me and said, I've been thinking about it. Maybe I still want to be with you. And I told her, no, I think we're done. And shortly after that, we stopped communicating altogether. And I think that was probably for the best. And it helped me realize in a very significant way that it was important for me to give myself the opportunity to grow and transform who I am and figure out myself. So I took a course on breakups, and that course on breakups helped me kind of get my feet underneath me, kind of helped me to start getting over that person. And more importantly, it pointed me in the direction of some books around men's work. I started reading Iron John by Robert Bly. I read Warrior, Magician, Lover, King by Douglas Gillette and Roger Moore. And I read Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It by Kamal Ravikant. And reading these books helped me to start seeing who I was and who I needed to become. It didn't fix everything overnight. It took a little while. And initially, I just did this work on my own. I just picked up books and I started reading them. I didn't know if there were other men out there doing this kind of work. I just knew I needed to do it for myself. And so I read these books for a few months, and then I found out that there were organizations out there where men were doing their work. And I joined one. I took a free online class, and then before you knew it, I'd signed up for the 3-week class, the 10-week class that came after that, and a weekend adventure. And it changed my life. I came out the other side feeling a lot more clarity and focus. And over the course of the last 2 years, I've continued doing that. In the midst of all that, I decided to become a men's coach because I realized that that I didn't want to see men go through the kind of pain that I had gone through, that I wanted to help men. And I realized that in general, men feel lost. It wasn't just me who was lost. It was men in general. And I thought, I want to take these experiences and transform them. And in the midst of all that, I got into another relationship. And that relationship also didn't work out, in part because I wasn't ready for that relationship. I was still working on myself. And so some of the codependent, needy behaviors came out. Not as much as they had before, but they still came out. And that also was a growing opportunity for me. So here I am now, 2 years later, and I'm still very much on my own journey. I'm coming out with my first book on men's work, which is called The Quest for Mature Masculinity, and it's coming out in September of 2024. So I'm super excited about that. And I am actually looking at going back to school for a counseling program so that way I can become a counselor as well as a coach, because I feel like there are layers of trauma that men often need help with. And I want to help them work through that. And in the midst of all this, I'm changing my life entirely around. At the day of this recording, it's about 3 weeks out from me leaving my day job, partially to go back to school, but partially also just because I want to take my life in a different direction than I've ever gone before. I want to take a chance on myself, so I'm leaving behind my work and stepping fully into some of the things that I'm doing to take care of myself and to take care of other people. I am also a magician and occultist, so I practice magic and I teach magic to other people. So here I am, and one of the things that I've been doing a lot of thinking about the last couple of years is, what does it mean to be a man, and what does it mean to become a mature man? Because the models of masculinity that I was raised with were not good ones. My dad was an alcoholic. He cheated on every single one of his wives. He was he was out of touch with himself, and certainly out of touch with other people. I didn't even know who he really was. And that was my model for masculinity. And the boys around me and the men that I got exposed to, for the most part, were kind of similar. Like, everyone was just kind of withdrawn, hiding behind their own walls. But now we're in a new day and age where more than ever, men have to figure out how to be vulnerable, how to lead at the same time, how to be grounded and aware, and all these other things, and it feels fucking impossible. Most men, I think, are lost because we don't know how to do all the things that we're supposed to somehow do. And we're also coping with the reality that our roles have significantly changed in the last few decades. And in some ways, this is all for the better, but men are feeling left behind. And our solution isn't going to be found from women. You know, women are kind of tired of dealing with men and their problems and their issues. You know, they can rightfully say, "Oh, we've been dealing with this for a long time," and yet, of course, women want a relationship with us too. The problem and the solution, it's going to be found with other men. It's going to be found in brotherhood. That's what I've discovered. And I'd done internal work for a long time. I've been doing internal work since 2004. So for 20 years of my life, I've been doing some form of inner work. But when I got into men's work, it expedited the process significantly. And so this is kind of what we're looking at here in terms of how we transform or change our lives. The kind of work that we need to be doing. So what does it mean to be a man? I think that more than ever, that's a question that we have to answer. And part of it is found by looking at the fact that so often men are putting themselves in situations where they're prioritizing everyone else around them but themselves. And they're prioritizing their romantic relationship over themselves. And for a man to discover who he is, he's got to discover what his mission and purpose is in life, how he's going to serve the world. And he's also got to learn how to take care of himself and value himself instead of continually looking for the woman to do that for him. And more often than not, men are a lot of times kind of looking toward women to do this for them. And women don't want to necessarily do that. They want men to show up being grounded and aware. They want men to show up able to lead in the relationship and yet also able to respect and respect the contributions that women bring and do their part in the relationship to make it work and to really kind of show up. None of that can happen as long as we continually live in a world where we're not stepping up and taking our role. And so to me, being a mature man is learning how to become a grounded and aware man. It's learning how to listen. It's learning how to be present. It's learning how to let go of your defensiveness and your stonewalling and the behaviors that keep you from being in genuine relationship with another person. But it's also learning how to take care of yourself and love yourself. It's learning how to value the way you show up in the world and value yourself for what you have to offer, because you have something special to offer outside of relationship. It's learning to step up as a parent. And it's learning really how to take care of all the things in your life that are important to you, to feed your soul, nurture your spirit, feel your emotions, be present in your body, and to apply your mind toward creating the reality that you want to create. And if all that feels overwhelming, I want to remind you that it's not. But we have to take it one step at a time. And so the purpose of this podcast, as well as all the other content that I'm creating in general, is to help you with that and to also point you toward other resources that can help you. So welcome to the first episode of the Mature Masculinity Podcast. I'm really happy to have you here, and I hope that you find it helpful. And I'd love for you to like it, comment, and otherwise connect with me. Thanks, and take care.